Hello, welcome to the video, the final video in my kart build series, and I am so excited to get this job nearly done. Today, this video is going to be a really simple one. We're going to put all the bodywork on, we're going to put the wheels on, and then I have a special guest turning up to help put all the stickers on. Let's get into it. So, as I said, with bodywork, it's all quite simple. So, with regards to the front bumper, you have these fittings on the back. Now, if you notice, I have slightly smaller fittings than maybe you might get as standard because we do not run drop-down noses in GX UK. So you can have these shorter ones, which means if you do push up against somebody, you're not going to actually have your bumper have a drop down and then you've got to come off to the pits. So you can buy these shorter ones. I'll put a link somewhere, and you can go and buy these relatively cheaply, so you don't have to worry about the bumpers going down. Now, it is pretty simple. You have these bits on the front bars, you have this red thing here with a larger hole, you lift them up, you take the clamps off.
So to show you what you're aiming for, this is how it should look. You should have the big red block in the middle of the entire bumper, and then you should have each clamp in the middle of the bumper blocks. Then you clamp down the clamps, and what I do is I add a cable tie to the clamps so the clamps don't fall off when you undo them. And that is it. That's as simple as it is to get your front bumper on. So with my Nassau panel, I have the KG 508 Nassau panel. For this Nassau panel, we have 3 connection points. There is 2 at the top by the steering wheel. They have already got rubber washers either side of it. I tend to add another one in just to limit a little bit of vibration. Put those in with a bolt and a 10mm nut. And then we have a connection at the bottom, which is by the bar that you can see poking up. So once you have all the bolts installed in the top part of the Nassau panel, you then have to move to the bottom part. Now with the bottom part, you probably will have to pack out this because, as you can see, that bolt is not giving enough space. It doesn't go all the way down to the metal, and it also touches the bumper. So to do that, what we do is we grab some of these red washers. They're nice and squishy, so they're good. They reduce some vibration, and we use them to fill the gap. And then we again use a bolt and a 10mm nut, tie it up, and that is it. Your Nassau panel is fitted.
Now it's time to get the side pods on. What you need for this is 2 side pod bars, 2 side pods, one of these plastic bolts, and a side pod sleeve. Things to remember with the side pod bars is they are handed, so you have to make sure that the long pole goes in the furthest forward side pod hole. First, put the sleeve on, and now we fit them. For the front side pod hole, you want to put this in, goes in the hole, and then push the sleeve over. For this one, we need to tie it up with a nut and bolt.
A good tip when fitting the nut and bolt on the side pod bars is you want to put the bolt downwards through the hole and then screw the nut up from the bottom. The reason you want to do this is because if the nut ever comes loose, the bolt will still stay in the hole and will not be affected by gravity, fall out, and then you could lose a side pod.
Now that the bar is on, we need to put the side pod on. The side pods are not handed, they can go either way. If you buy a second hand pair of side pods, just make sure the dirtiest side goes on the bottom.
Again, super simple here. It is literally just 2 bolts and a washer. You stick the bolts in one side and screw them into the side pod. Nice and simple, job done.
So now on to the trickiest part of the bodywork, which is fitting the rear bumper bolts. Now hopefully if you followed my guide before about cleaning and get everything out, these should already be removed for you. I'm putting in brand new ones because mine were a little bit bent. After seasons of racing they get hammered and they do get bent a little bit. So we're putting in brand new bolts. You get them in a pair like these with a thick rubber end, a thin rubber end, some nuts, and then this little metal part here. Something I add to help you more easily remove these bolts when you need to is I add a washer to the end. So I take all of this apart and I stick a washer in here. It means that this end of the bolt doesn't embed itself in the rubber, which means it's difficult to get off. So as you can see now, that the end of that bolt now cannot go into the rubber because it is protected by the washer. So to get this on, what you want to do is you have the rubber bit on the end, and you want to leave out the other two bits that came with it, and you have these two 17mm nuts. And you need to lock these together, and I'll show you how to do that. So what we do, now this is all done, hope to make sure the inside of this is nice and clean. You don't want any oils or anything helping this thing fall out. You just slot it nicely into the slot. Then what you want to do, you grab two 17mm spanners, and you want to turn them, you want to lock them together, and to do that you turn them against each other. So you take this one and you turn them towards each other until they're tight. Okay, once they're tight, then line up with the holes underneath. Now that this is locked together, you want to get your circlip pliers and stick them in the holes on this, and you want to turn this anti-clockwise. You want to turn it, keep this held in tight in there. You want to just get this on the first nut and just keep turning it. You'll feel it start to tighten up. And then what will happen is, all of a sudden it'll crack. And once it cracks, and it's cracked like that, and the nuts become loose, you know that this is now tight enough. And now we can actually fit the bumper fitting mounts.
So once we've done that, we take the nuts off the end, we reapply the rubber to it, then we slide on the rear bumper mounts. Following that, we pop the washer back on, then the flat 17mm nut, and then the threaded 17mm nut on top of that. So we drill it in so the bumper mounting bracket is nice and tight and pointing upwards. And then it is as simple as adding some bolts with some 13mm nuts on the end into the back of the bumper, through the bumper, into the bumper mounting frame, and that is it. You have now attached your rear bumper.
So all we're going to do now is we're going to put the wheels on. Now the wheels are easy to put on. There are two things to remember though. One, the tyres are directional, so you have to make sure that they are facing the correct direction. And then what you're going to do is we're going to use these 10mm K-nuts. Now with 10mm K-nuts, they are technically a single-use item. I've put a fresh set on for every single race weekend because they are designed to be a softer metal than the threads on the hubs. So just be wary of that, make sure you change them every time. Let's put them on.
Now in this video I'm not going to give you instruction on how to fit new tyres to wheels. There are lots of videos for it going around the internet, but I will probably make one when I do have to fit new tyres to my rims. But I'm not doing that now. It is as simple as line your wheels up with your hubs and put on the 3 nuts. It's simple as that. Job done.
So that is everything done bodywork wise. There is now only one more thing to do, and that is to get the stickers on. However, you all saw the mess that I made of my chain guard. So for this one, I have employed somebody to come and do the job for me. Introducing Mr. Bradley Philpot. As you've seen from all his YouTube channels, all his YouTube videos, he is an expert at this kind of stuff. So I have employed him to come and do my stickers for me. So Brad, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about how the way to go about putting stickers on?
Yeah, so you're definitely going to need a couple of things. The main thing is patience. The other thing is a physical tool, and that's a heat gun. So you're going to see us using a heat gun, even though it's a nice warm day here today. There is no point trying to put a sticker kit on a cart, trying to get around all of these complex curved surfaces with a flat sticker if you don't warm it up first. So that's what you're going to see me doing. Warming it up for exactly the right amount of time is also key, because you can melt the thing or make it completely fall apart if you leave the heat gun on for too long. So there's a real knack to that, but the only way to learn is by starting out. So I'd suggest beginning slowly, warming it up gently to begin with, seeing how much of an effect that has on the softness of the rubberized stickers, because bear in mind, these are special kart stickers. These aren't just like a normal piece of vinyl that you'd stick on something else. To get around this surface and to be hard wearing, they've got a very rubberized, thick texture. And so being warm is going to allow them to assume the shape of this kart, and I'm going to do my very best not to mess up your livery.
Well, you did a good job last year. I think it was one of the first set of sticker kits you did on the ones we had last year. So I think you're going to do a cracking job, which is why I've got you. So I think we'll start with the Nassau panel.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Right, so what we're going to do first of all, even though it's a nice warm sunny day, we're just going to get some kind of temperature in the sticker kit itself. So on this piece we're using here, just so it's mildly flexible to start off with. and then we're going to use basically the shape of the bodywork as our starting points. By heating it up and applying the sticker, it's going to stretch it, and so it won't end up in exactly the same place as it does when it's cold like this, but we've got to start somewhere. And the good thing with these stickers is, because they are so thick and hard wearing, you can remove them once they're not hot anymore and reapply them. I'm going to compensate by starting off at the bottom here, a couple of millimeters higher. I'm going to try and have a consistent amount of white showing all the time, but it's difficult to get that right. And then as we go up to the top, obviously this is a very fragile piece here, so I'm not going to try and stretch that. Right now you'll notice I'm not using any kind of heat gun because I'd want to be able to check the position of this. Yeah, now that is reasonably good.
So the basis of what you can see here is Brad is basically trying to line this current sticker up and then heat it up so it gets to the right particular points, because if it's not heated up, sometimes it won't line up properly. So you apply a little bit of heat with the heat gun, get it in the right place, and then just use your thumbs to mold it into position. A nice tip is to start from the center and work your way out. Hey Brad, why are we doing all this work with the bodywork on? Why aren't we taking the bodywork off and doing it somewhere else?
That's a great question, and that's because everything's in a nice fixed position, and so if you try and do this with the bodywork off the kart, it moves when you're trying to angle things and use your thumbs to work the shapes, and obviously it's hard enough when it's in a fixed position. I think as a starting point though, this has gone relatively well. I don't want to speak too soon. So now, because we want this to fit around a bit of a nasty curve, we'll warm it up and it will just sit on really nice and easily there. We've gone a fraction over at the top there, but that's fine.
This sticker kit was designed and supplied by One Custom Motorsport. I will put all their details in the description of this video if you want to have a kit done similar to mine or your own complete design. They have some fantastic design work and the quality of the stickers looks fantastic. So yeah, I would highly recommend them. They do other services as well, along with they've got the engine sticker kit, I've got my tray sticker kit for my trolley, and they can even do helmets and full helmet liveries as well. So One Custom Motorsport Design.
Right, so next we're doing this side panel. Now this is what I was just saying about how some of the lines are not going to line up perfectly here. So we're going to go with a best case, or our best compromise, I should say. We're going to line that one there, because this one you won't notice as much. So let's go with that. So that'll be our starting point. And then actually what I can show you here is, and I've just warmed that up and it's going to go cold. See how this yellow is going to really struggle to meet here? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do some thumb work, see if we can get that to
strong thumbs are key, aren't they?
Yeah, and not being afraid of it, you know, like the material's quite strong. So, and also don't worry about messing it up too much, because no one's going to see the detail that you think they're going to see. When it's all on, it just works together. So little mistakes are completely fine. Now we've got our first obstacle, and that is the this particular sticker kit doesn't have a cutout for the bolt holes. I quite like that because they won't line up necessarily. When there's a pre-cut one, it doesn't always end up in the right place. If we'd had to stretch this, for example, it might be out of position. I've seen that recently actually with another sticker kit. So with this, we can just shoot. Yeah, so I'll wrap it round it, and we will use the heat gun for that, and then we'll just cut round it with a Stanley knife. We'll just use the heat gun around this bolt just to really define the shape of that. And you don't want to get the heat gun very close to stuff. It's amazing how much effect it has from a distance.
So what bit are we doing now, Brad?
Right, just the end of the Nassau panel. And because we've not got any pattern to line up here, this is quite nice. I'm just going to try and get that lined up straight at the bottom here. And you can see there's going to be a gap here, so we don't want a gap there. So let's use some heat and stretch the sticker slightly. I don't want to stretch the text of corporate chauffeurs, so I'll just stretch the blue a little bit. Yeah, now because this is or sticky at the top, it's easy for it to stick to stuff you don't want it to. So we're going to just wing this a little bit. Let's go like this. It's actually one of the easiest bits, that, wasn't it? But we do have some bubbles which are going to need sorting out, so I'll get to them in a minute with my pin. Okay, so this nose cone sticker kit is where I think this starts to get hard, and the reason is you're dealing with really big stickers over a long expanse and they're going around really complex shapes. So the shape of this nose cone, it curves up and down in all different places. And what you do at one end can massively affect how much space you've got to play with when you get to the other end. And you can find yourself looking perfect on one side and then everything's completely out of alignment the other side. So what I'm going to try and do the entire way here is start in the middle and then do equal amounts on both sides. So I know I've got a very recent reference of how much I stretched a thing, where I put one of the edges in relation to the bodywork itself. And then hopefully when we get onto the other stickers which have to line up with this, it'll all be just about right. But this is a slightly different shaped bit of sticker to what I've seen used for this shaped nose cone before. Just different sticker manufacturers do it slightly differently. So this is a first for me, so that's my excuse lined up front. Let's go. Well, fingers crossed, all the other bits line up when we put them on. That seems to have gone on reasonably well, to be honest. Like, no, there's no issues with that. So I'm happy with that.
I like it because it's not going in any complicated curves. I think some of the other stickers, the kits that I've seen you do, are more complicated, longer bits that
Yeah.
weave through here.
And I like how this has been deliberately cut so you can bend it round to minimise that gap. I didn't want to stretch it any more than that, but that was like a gap like that, and I've just moulded it round so it's a little bit smaller. Same on this side. Next up, let's do this middle bit. So, nicely designed in that none of these lines have to match up with a corresponding white line, so that's good. And obviously we're going to start at the bottom, and we've got some guide points here because the other sticker's already on, so that is exactly where that needs to line up. So let's do that. This is lovely, this piece. This is like putting on a massive visor sticker. So I think One Custom Design, who made this sticker kit, they've chosen quite a good cut line here, because this is all lining up really well without me having to do a lot of stretching. I'm going to just stretch this a little bit at the bottom so we don't end up with a big gap here. That's what I'm going to do now, okay? I'm going to try and do it over a longer zone so no one of those white lines looks stretched. I'm just doing it like a millimetre down to here. Okay, that I think is really nice, the way that's gone on. Little bubble there that's just appeared, so we'll work that out. Oh, that's gone. Yeah, so I'm not looking forward to this because this is what we're basically doing. You can probably see on the bumper here, we're trying to curve this sticker around a very acute angle, which has other angles built into it. So we've got one sweep here, we've got a kink here, a big kink here, and then obviously this one here, but it's a flat sticker. So getting that to wrap around there, you can see without any heat, that's just going to crease like crazy. But I'm going to do my best. So I'm running my finger along the sharpest edge along here, because that way I know it's going to fold flat on one side and on the other side. If I tried to do it on this part, ignoring the sharp curve, it could then potentially crease over this. So I'm deliberately sticking that bit down firmly, and then I've got two directions of easier to work with sticker. That's lovely. And the top part should hopefully do the same. I'm going to give it a tiny bit of warming because you can see this is a bit tight here.
Notice how Brad is never using maximum heat or maximum blowing from the heat gun.
There we go, that's gone on really nicely, and then we'll just finesse the edges. That actually went really, really well. Those tiny gaps there, there's not a lot I could do about that. Okay. So these side pods are deceptively tricky. and that is because of this curve at the front here. What I tend to do is try and line up the rear part here, because our guide is the shape of the back of the bumper here. And I try and do it high enough that we don't have the sticker too close to the bottom, because then it won't get scraped on curbs and that kind of thing. You do tend to end up with creases around the front here purely because of the way it ends up wrapping around. You're trying to put a flat thing on a very curved surface, and it gets narrower as well, yeah. So we'll just start by sticking the middle part down like this. And then, as always, I'll just work up from the middle, trying to eliminate any bubbles. Hopefully not too much stretching or anything like that needed on this. Certainly not on this portion. When we get to the front, this does then need to wrap around, but this back part is the easy bit. Alex has obviously cleaned his plastics before we've done any of this, so they're all de-greased. You don't want to be doing this with any WD-40 or anything like that on your side pods. I've got my heat gun to help. Just trying to keep it slightly warm all the time. It just molds itself around the curve a bit better. And as always, the big text in the center is what we want to make sure does not get warped at all. The main sponsor here wants to stay flat, so I don't really want to be doing any stretching on that section. So we'll make sure that's on nicely. Now generally the last bit you do is where the creases will end up. And that means if I work this around the top surface here, if we do get any creases, it's going to be down the bottom here where we don't see it. So when the kart's on the floor, you won't see any of the imperfections around the bottom. This could be one of those therapeutic videos, Alex. You know, where people, they watch it to go to sleep. One of those really satisfying things where something just comes together gradually. I think relaxing jazz music, something sensual.
Slow it down.
And these little air gaps here, you can see these, that's just because your side pods are not brand new. Where you've sanded them down, it's slightly porous here, so it's hard to make a complete seal on the end. So not really much you can do other than just keep heating it, keep trying to squash it on. But yeah, buy brand new side pods and then that's less of a problem. That's probably the best one I've done. All right, top piece. I noticed there's some solid lines that are not going to meet up unless we stretch. So let's do some stretching. And this is quite a good example actually of how much we're manipulating the sticker itself. So this white line at the back here lines up, but if that lines up, then this one doesn't. But that's a very easy fix with a little bit of heat. So we're going to just stretch the sticker out with very, very little effort. Let's pin it in position just there. I'm just going to warm up this middle zone, not too much. That's all we need. And then just slight pull, and there you go. You see that's now going to line up absolutely perfectly. And that now is our fixed reference point. So that now is good. I'll come to the front of that in a moment. Let's get this back line up, because you can also see there's a huge gap here if we don't do any stretching. So let's make it the right shape. Much, much smaller gap now. Nice one logo in there as well. And finally, the front. Done. I'm pretty happy with that.
But now we have to go and get some spanners out and take off.
You do. Okay, so onto the final sticker, the floor tray. Now the sun's gone in, so everything's got a little bit harder and more difficult to work with. It's all going to crease a bit more easily. Thankfully, we've got quite a flat surface here to work with, but as always, the floor trays are slightly different shapes. They're cut out very slightly differently, and when you apply the sticker to them, it doesn't quite fit. And what I mean by that is it overlaps. So Alex is going to have to do some Stanley knife tidying up at the end. So once we've got this on, we'll flip it over and then we'll just cut around the edges. But yeah, it looks like it should be easy, but actually these aren't that easy. You don't have very many defined points to line up. And if something starts going wrong at one end, it'll be really far out of position by the other end.
And with this, Brad was absolutely right. Putting the floor tray on actually ended up being the hardest sticker out of all of them to do, despite the fact it being on a flat surface. The amount of times we had to apply, take off, reapply, take off, reapply was ridiculous, and the whole process took like 30 minutes to actually get it done. So I'm not going to make you watch all of that because of sticking a flat sticker on a surface. Just take into account it's difficult, it is a hard one. You think you're nearly finished and then you're not, because this one takes you hours and ends up being the most frustrating sticker of the entire job. But we did get there, we did get it done, and now I get to show you what everything looks like. So
we have now got the sticker kit on this kart, and I'm now going to reveal to you how the kart now looks. This is super exciting. This is what we've been building to for the last few months of building this kart. So here we go. I think it looks absolutely awesome. I am so in love. I think the colors work brilliantly. I think the design absolutely is a great evolution from the swoops and curves that I had last year to now something more sharp and aggressive and a bit more vibrant on track. Thank you so much to One Custom Motorsport for this full design and doing all the printing and everything else that goes with it, and putting up with me being neurotic on every single detail with regards to it. Their details are in the description of the video, and you can go and talk to them. Use the code ALEX10 to get 10% off on your order, and they can do everything for you. Super happy with that, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.